Something changed 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, mainstream scientists began looking at the human body not from a biological perspective, but they began looking at the human body from an IT perspective, information technology. The history of our species is stored in each of our DNA. We are a distributed network. The first quantum computer chip was announced only last week, and they're saying now this is going to change everything when we're being encouraged to give away our biology and replace our natural systems with technology. Computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the blood, RFID chips under the skin, nanosensors running through the body. But there's a very high price that we pay if we give away our biology, because there's a part of us called human divinity, imagination, creativity, love, forgiveness, compassion, empathy, sympathy. All of these attributes that we cherish are expressions of human divinity. They're only possible through natural biology, where we will lead simpler lives and allow the technology to serve us, but not allow the technology to enslave us. Right now, we are on the path to technological enslavement.
Liebe Freunde, willkommen zurück. Bei mir ist ein absoluter Weltstar der Weiterbildungsbranche, ein Mann mit über 17 Büchern, 5 davon New York Times Bestseller. Und wir sprechen darüber, wie unsere menschliche DNA, wie unsere menschliche Biologie immer mehr durch die Technologie, durch die KI ersetzt werden soll. Er hat dazu ein faszinierendes Buch geschrieben, was er außerhalb von diesem Interview findet. Und genau dort tauchen wir ein. Please welcome, dear Gregg Braden.
Maxim, thank you so much for having me once again. We had a previous conversation, and still you invite me back for another one. So part two is what this is. Thank you for that.
Dear Gregg, part 2 is more than welcome. The last time we spoke about technology replacing biology and maybe the warning of our future self coming back in time to warn us, or even another species, please don't do the same mistake like we do. Can we speak about the human potential, especially, you said in your book, which we will link outside, that the best computer chip will not be able to do the same what the human neuron already can do and will always be able to do. How did you mean it exactly?
Well, this conversation, this is a conversation, it could be many podcasts. So let me begin just by saying, in the past, we have been encouraged to look at our bodies, biology, through the lens of soft, wet, mushy, sticky, gooey stuff in the body. And the discoveries were always published in biology and medical textbooks because of that. Something changed 5 years ago. And that change has shifted the way we think of ourselves. Here's the change. About 5 years ago, mainstream scientists began looking at the human body not from a biological perspective, but they began looking at the human body from an IT perspective, information technology. And this is a very, very different way of thinking, and I acknowledge that right now. But what they began to find, let me just give you some examples, and then we'll talk about the computer chips. The average human body has about 50 trillion cells or so in the body. And now scientists recognize every one of those cells creates a tiny electrical pulse. It's low voltage, 0.07 volts of electrical potential. You say, well, that's not very much, but do the math. 50 trillion cells times 0.07 is about 3.5 trillion volts of potential, electrical potential. So what would it mean if we could harness that and apply it to our healing or our intuition or our remote viewing or our telepathy? But it doesn't stop there, because the scientists discovered that every cell is a circuit, a tiny circuit. If there's engineers, they're called gated, G-A-T-E-D, gated circuits. They have an input, they have an output, and within that circuit, we have the biological equivalents of transistors in our cells, resistors, capacitors. But it doesn't stop there, because every cell absorbs photons of light, and we emit photons of light. We can measure the light that we emit. Light is information. So we are receiving information, and our body breaks it down and translates it, and we're emitting information. Every cell in the body it stores and retrieves information, just like we do on a computer chip. Your viewers will love this. In the DNA of every human is a record of every successful genetic transaction that our species has ever experienced. The history of our species is stored in each of our DNA. We are a distributed network. Now, when scientists talk about the DNA, that information, here's how they describe it. First of all, the genetic record is transparent. If you know how to read it, it's right there. It's not hidden. It is secure, and the English term is immutable. In other words, the transaction is distributed throughout the entire network of 8 billion humans. So those words, when you have an information technology that is transparent, it is secure, it is immutable, if you've heard that, it's because that's the foundation of blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is revolutionizing information storage, decentralized finance, decentralized everything because of blockchain technology. The technology that we're building outside of us mimics, it copies what we already do in our bodies. The internet mimics, it copies the way that information is shared in the body and between us. We are holographic. We are fractal. We are deeply connected, and I just forgot the term for the connection, entangled. We are deeply entangled. We are holographic, and we are fractal. And all of this technology we're building outside of us, it actually mimics what we are in our bodies and more, except here's the thing, it mimics what we do, but we do it better. We do it better. We humans are a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated kind of technology. It's called soft technology. So we're not the old-fashioned hard technology of a silicon chip or an RFID chip. We're more than that. We're neurons, cell membranes. We move ion potentials across cell walls. And here's the beauty. We are so complex that we don't need to know how we work to benefit from our own technology. During the Cold War, I was working in the defense industry with very advanced, very sophisticated technology. I worked on a project that was called SDI, Star Wars Defense Initiative. Advanced lasers, advanced communications, advanced radar. And I say this because I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned is the more advanced the technology is behind the scenes, the simpler the user interface. My mobile phone right here. I push a picture on my phone and I set into motion a cascade of events that pays my bills, talks to my friends. I just push the picture. We humans work the same way. we are very sophisticated underneath. Our user interface, thought, feeling, emotion, breath, focus, nutrition, and movement. Those are the elements of our most ancient and cherished spiritual traditions. Our ancestors were not scientists. They didn't know the technology, but they understood the principle. And they knew that we can access our human potential through those things. Meditation is one way that we do that. So the point of what the discoveries are showing is the external technology mimics what we do, except we do it better. And now let me give you a couple of examples. And I love to share these. One, I was with a group of young people in a seminar, and really good, really sweet young people. And they have been taught that computer chips and artificial intelligence, AI, is the new God. They worship AI and computers. And so we did a little experiment. And I said, computer chips, they're definitely fast. They're definitely efficient. How far can you scale a computer chip? How scalable is that technology? And the answer is that the computer chip is limited by the physics of the material it's made of. So if it's a silicon chip, the atoms that make silicon will only let the information move between those atoms at a fixed rate. So fast, yes. Efficient, yes. Scalable, it's limited. It is finite scalability. Now, human neuron. What is the upper limit of a human neuron? The answer is we don't know. Because every time scientists push a neuron to the limit that they believe it's capable of, the neuron does what humans do. It morphs, it adapts to that new condition and opens up a whole new vista of potential. The human brain, for example, new brain states. Now we have the gamma brain state. We have the hyper gamma brain state. We've got the epsilon brain state because the human brain keeps adapting to these changes. So humans, our neurons, are we scalable? Our scalability appears to be infinite because every time we reach the limit, we change. Scientists at Stanford University did an interesting experiment, and I think it was around the year 2022, when they compared a human brain to a microprocessor, to a computer chip. And the way they made the comparison was they took the number of synapses, so the space between the neurons where the little spark of information jumps. They equated those to the transistors on the computer chip, on the microprocessor. And interestingly, we have about the same number of synapses in the human brain as we do on the modern microprocessors. So the bottom line, they went through all the studies, and what they found is that the human brain is about 100 times more efficient than those computer chips, at least for now. Now we're having this conversation just before Christmas in 2024. Last week, a new discovery was announced. The first quantum computer chip was announced only last week. And the name of the chip is Willow, is what they have named this chip. And they're saying now this is going to change everything. Here's where it gets interesting, is that chip mimics what we do because we also work on the quantum level. We are quantum processors. We process information faster than the speed of light because the information is entangled. It doesn't have to travel because it's already connected. So now the processors are catching up with the potential of what it means to be human. And we could go on and on with this, but the point of sharing all of this is that we live in a time when we're being encouraged to give away our biology and replace our natural systems with technology. Computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the blood, RFID chips under the skin, sensors, nanosensors running through the body. And what the science is showing is that we meet the capacity, in many cases, we exceed the capacity of the technology that we're being asked to replace our bodies with. But there's a very high price that we pay if we give away our biology. Because if we give away our biology, as we said in our previous conversation, and for our viewers, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go back and watch the first part of this conversation. Because there's a part of us called divinity, human divinity, imagination, creativity, love, forgiveness, compassion, all of these empathy, sympathy, all of these attributes that we cherish are expressions of human divinity. They're only possible through natural biology. If we replace our biology with synthetics, we lose access to our divinity, and that is a very high price to pay. It means that we become beings of logic, but no emotion, no empathy. We lose our ability to imagine and create. We follow instructions, but we don't innovate and imagine and create. This is the very high price that we're not being told is the price that we pay if we follow that path that our ancestors may have followed in their time. If we are to believe the stories of time travelers that come back and warn us not to make that same mistake, or of forms of life from other planets. We talked about this in the previous conversation. Other beings that come back and they're saying that we're at the place in our evolution, they were in theirs. They chose technology. It was a mistake. They want their biology back, and they're encouraging us not to make that same choice. If you want to know more about that, check out the previous conversation. So this is what I wanted to say about this, Maxim, that nobody's telling our young people these things. Our young people are being told that they are weak, vulnerable, flawed, F-L-A-W-E-D, a flawed species, and that they need something outside of themselves to be successful in life and to compete in the world, and that their humanness has failed them, when in fact it is the very essence of their humanness that gives them the edge in the world. And this is, I think, a message we need to share with our young people, in my opinion.
And we will do. And I thank you so much, Greg. Can you maybe share to us your perspective? How will they try? What kind of marketing strategies will they use in order to promote these technologies? Yeah, you need this microchip, which is, please correct me, even is mentioned in the Bible, I think, like this time, when they spoke about it.
Yeah, in the previous conversation, we had the talk about evil is anything that separates us from our divinity. So anything that separates or prevents us from love, forgiveness, healing, innovation, imagination, creativity, empathy, sympathy, compassion, all of that, anything that separates us from that is a form of evil. So in a very real sense, the transhuman movement to replace our biology is a form of evil because it steals from us our divinity. The way that we will be encouraged to accept these technologies is really sexy marketing. They make it look really, really good. I know it's happening, and I still see the ads, and I'm blown away by how good. So, for example, they will show a man walking down the street. The sky is blue. The birds are singing. He has no briefcase, no car keys, no credit cards, no billfold for money or credit cards. And he says he has never been so free. What gives him that is that he has 15 separate RFID chips embedded into his body. And so he has one chip that starts the car, another chip that opens the security gate to his business, another chip that goes to the ATM for money, another chip that pays for his groceries at the market. And we will be told that we are healthier if we accept technology into our bodies, that we are safer. Though there will be a lot about safety in the world. If we have nanobots in our circulatory system transmitting biometrics, they are transmitting not only blood pressure, not only glucose levels, but they are transmitting emotional components. So when we feel that we don't like a policy, that feeling will be transmitted through those technologies. It's a very high price that we're asked to pay to accept these technologies. Now, the United Nations, World Economic Forum, agreed in 2019 to work together to implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I want to be really clear. If you look at those goals on the outside, they are beautiful goals that I want and everyone wants. Goals like one goal is food security. We all want food security. Eradication of disease. We all want to eradicate disease in the world. Eradicate poverty. We all want that in the world. Beautiful goals on the outside. Now, look at the fine print. How do they propose that we achieve those goals? And what they propose is what we're talking about. It is what they call the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's what they call the Great Reset, where we not only change the world around us, but we change the world within us to accomplish those goals. In my opinion, there are other ways to do this. It's a dangerous prospect. I don't know that there is no one UN. There are UNs within you. It's like a corporation. There are companies within companies, United Nations within United Nations. There are some really good people in the UN who want to do good things in the world. And there are people in the UN who have very old, obsolete ideas that are not good for us. They're not good for humans. They're not good for human life. It is actually anti-human. The agenda that they're putting forth is anti-human because it is transhuman. And the idea is to incorporate all of this technology under a massive artificial intelligence within 5 years. And the only way to accomplish that is for us to give away our divinity, for us to give away our biology. So I would never attempt to convince or persuade another person. My brothers and sisters, we have free will. I do want to make my global family aware of what we're being asked to do, and they have to ask themselves, is it worth the price? But ultimately, it comes down to something even simpler. Maxim, this all comes down to love. And it's a question we each have to ask ourselves is this: do I love myself enough to accept the gift of my humanness, my divinity, and the responsibility that comes with that power? Do I love myself enough to accept that gift? And the answer is not in words that we speak. The answer is in the way we live our lives. Every moment and every day we choose. We either affirm or we deny our divinity in life. How do we speak to one another? How do we allow other people to speak to us? How do we nourish our bodies? These are all expressions of divinity. So it's what we become, how we live our lives. And I think this is what it comes down to. Do we love ourselves enough to preserve the gift of our bodies? I personally believe we're worth preserving. I think our humanness is worth preserving. And I don't agree with what many of the scientists are saying, that this is the next step in our evolution. It's not a natural evolution. It's not good for us. It's not good for us humans. Maybe it's good for another form of life. And it's not good for us humans. And I think we need to be aware of that.
Dear Greg, do you think, last two questions, the first one, do you think we have a really, because I'm all the time thinking about these movies, which for sure you know from the 90s, yeah, like Cyborg and Terminator, yeah, and it's like somehow somebody knew something and we were prepared through Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Because Hollywood is just doing profit and propaganda. And on the one side is, do you think that through people like you, like rising consciousness, that the people are getting even mainstream, even more aware? Or do we have like to have like official alien encounter that something have to interfere or to come between all this Agenda 2030, that the people have this critical mass to raise up? Or do you think it's still possible, these two timelines, that they can win?
Well, I'm going to answer that in two ways. First of all, the ancient texts that are looking into our future all tell us that we prevail, that humans win, or that the force of good. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is a scroll called the War, W-A-R, War Scroll, that describes the ancient battle between the sons of darkness and the sons of light. And we are living that battle. The sons of darkness, sons of light is the battle between good and evil. And by the way, for ladies that are listening, sons of darkness, sons of light is all inclusive of all humankind, masculine and feminine. 2,500 years ago, they looked at gender differently than we do today, but it includes everyone. I wanted to say that. So they describe this battle between good and evil, and it's very complex. 19 columns in the scroll. They describe this. The good news is that the sons of light win. The force of good wins, but there's a catch. And the catch is what we're talking about right now. The sons of light, or the force of good, wins because we have divine intervention to help us. And that intervention is possible because we have accepted our own divinity. When we accept our own power, we step up. And by stepping up, that opens the door for a greater force to step down and help us. When I was a kid growing up, Maxim, back in the 1950s, my mom had a saying, and I think that saying is what this is about. And what she would always say is, God helps those who help themselves. So you can't just sit back and wait to be rescued. You have to make the effort. And by making the effort, we will be met with a force that will help us. And I think that applies to this battle between good and evil. We can't sit back and wait to be rescued by angels or aliens. And in the ancient texts, those are the same, by the way. In the Sumerian text, what the biblical texts call angels and demons are also equated with ETs and aliens from other worlds. At different times, different language, same principle. So we can't sit back and wait. We must put forth the effort to become the best version of ourselves. And by doing that, we open the door. It's then that we can hear the telepathic messages, that we can feel in our hearts, and we can rise biologically to the help that is being offered. And I think that's important. So that's one way of answering your question. The other way, I'm seeing two parallel societies emerge at the same time right now, all over the world. I'm seeing one segment of our society that accepts everything. They're all in. They're all in on the latest gadget, on the transhuman technology, computer chips in the brain, chemicals in the body. They're all in. And then when I go to my local food market, it's called a co-op. When I go to my co-op, that's where I see my neighbors. They're really good people. They're farmers. They're construction workers. they don't always have this conversation, but they know something's not right in the world. And what they say to me is they say, Greg, things are moving too fast. We need to slow down. We need to get back to basics. And so they're taking their kids out of public schools so they can teach them at home the values and the skills that actually serve them. They're growing their own food. They're digging wells and purifying their own water because they don't trust the water that's in the pipes. And those are two extremes. What I think will happen, Maxim, is that we will do what people always do. We like to observe each other. We like to people watch. And so we're gonna check it out. Two parallel societies, and we're gonna say who is happier in their life, who's healthier in their body, whose kids are better adjusted, who feels more fulfilled in their heart's dreams. And the answer to that question will then determine what those two parallel societies do. My guess is I think we'll find a place in between where we will lead simpler lives and allow the technology to serve us, but not allow the technology to enslave us. Right now, we are on the path to technological enslavement. And I think this is what we'll do. We'll always have technology. We'll always have, I think, an internet of some kind. You know, we're always going to have communication devices. But I think an AI can be very useful outside of the body. We just don't want to replace our bodies. Let me just give a quick example. I know we're short on time. Let me give you just a really quick example. When I was a kid, I was taught that we are born with a finite number of brain cells. And that was taught for a long time. You come into this world, X amount of brain cells, and you'll never have any more. Now we know that's not true. There's a part of the brain, it's the hippocampus, that produces new brain cells until the last breath, no matter how old we are. 120 years, you're still producing brain cells. There's a catch. And the catch is this. Those new brain cells must be engaged in a meaningful way within 7 days, about a week, or they will atrophy and die because the body believes they're not needed. That principle applies to every system in the body. The immune system, the reproductive system, every system in the body. When we replace the body with a computer chip or a chemical that does the function for us, our natural systems begin to atrophy. Pretty soon they stop working. The next generation, they don't even do this anymore. This is how you lose a species. So I think we'll find a happy medium where we allow the technology to serve us outside of our bodies, but we don't replace on a large scale. If we don't need to, we don't replace our bodies with the technology. And I think we'll see it within our lifetimes. This is unsustainable. What's happening right now, something has to give. And I think we'll see it in our lifetime. Hopefully the book, Pure Human, it helps our community to know what those choices are and how to make healthy choices. There's a whole chapter on how to recognize the indoctrination and how to make healthy choices for ourselves and our children. So my hope is that the reader walks away with a deeper appreciation for our humanness and maybe even a sense of pride, because I'm proud to be a human. A lot of people don't like that word. I think it's good to be proud of our species, because then we will preserve and protect our bodies and our humanness and what's important to us. Our being proud is not a bad thing in that respect. So once again, we ended the last conversation with this question, and I think it comes down to this again. Do we love ourselves enough to accept the gift of our humanness and the responsibility that comes with being a human? And we answer that with every choice that we make in our lives. Yeah.
Dear Greg, thank you so much. Maybe one small brief question because I checked your birthday before. And I was surprised because you look at least for me 20 years younger. And we met the first time in Switzerland. So I could not believe the date I found on Google, which I still take for myself in order to be polite.
But was that 1879? Was that the date 1879? No.
Then you would be like a Dracula or something like this.
Yeah.
which you are not.
No.
But Greg, is there something what you can recommend, because you look so good for your passport age? Yeah, what you do for your health? What do you eat? How do you sleep? How do you move? Because a lot of studies also coming out with the stem cells. I do it now for 30 days with the cacao, without sugar, because it doubled the stem cells. What are you doing for your body that you look so good? It's not only like your genes for your parents, no?
Well, first of all, thank you. I am having allergies today, and I could feel the allergies in my eyes. So thank you for your kind words. It's not something special. I make a promise to myself that I live in my life what I teach and what I've discovered. I spend a lot of time in Tibet with the monks and the nuns, and I live what I've learned from them with the indigenous people in Peru. Movement is important. I make a promise to myself. I will have conscious movement every day, but I'm not so structured because I have a very busy life. It's different every day. So I say within 24 hours, I will have some kind of movement. I do resistance training 3 times a week. I study martial arts in between. I have, some kind of movement. I have never tolerated meat. My body never has tolerated meat. And I think the reason, and I think a lot of what you're saying, and I'm not recommending this for anyone. I had an accident when I was 5 years old that almost killed me. I was electrocuted. Obviously, it didn't kill me. But what the science is showing is if you survive a high voltage shock, it changes the way your body metabolizes. It changes the way your DNA functions. And I think it's because I survived that shock that I was not able to tolerate certain kinds of food. I mean, I would eat and literally get sick. I couldn't eat it. So I'm not recommending that people have a high voltage experience. If you are blessed enough to have a high voltage experience and you survive it, it does change the way the body metabolizes and the way the body ages. And I feel very blessed to have had that experience. I did it to myself. I literally took 2 wires. I walked over to an electrical outlet and I plugged them. Now, in the United States is different than Europe. We are 1/2 of you're 220 and I'm 110 voltage. So I'm glad that it happened in America.
Wow.
But I think the important thing, I've studied the ancient texts a lot, Maxim, and I've studied Jesus as a learned master, not from a religious perspective, but from a spiritual perspective. He was an Essene, Essene, and in their day, they were not called Essene, they were called Therapeutae, because they knew how to heal. And I learned many years ago, probably 50 years ago, when his students asked him, "Master, what should we eat?" The answer that he gave to them is the answer that I live by every day. And he didn't say, don't eat this and eat some of this and don't eat that. What he said is this. He said, that which gives life to your food will also give life to your body. That which steals life from your food will steal life from your body. Therefore, eat the things that give life to your food and your body. It's pretty clear. It means the closer that we can get our food to its natural source, even if we eat meat, eat clean meat without the hormones, without the antibiotics. Same with poultry and the same with, anything. But the closer we get it to its natural source, the more life force it is going to convey into our bodies. I was at the market a few days ago. There are products on the shelves that we call food that have never seen sunlight. They were made inside of a machine. They're manufactured from other products. And those are not the things that give life to our bodies. So this is an expression of divinity. Every moment of every day, we either affirm or deny our divinity. We affirm or deny life in our bodies. And those are very personal choices for everyone, Maxim. But thank you for the compliment. You made my afternoon today. Thank you.
Dear Greg, thank you so much for your time, for this knowledge which you accumulated for several centuries, and now have this clear voice, this powerful vision for the people. Get connected, speak with each other, help to prevent this probably drastic change within our humanity by replacing biology through technology. And especially thank you for being brave with your reputation, with all these connections and all this impact you have already on this planet. Also as a scientist man, that you still share things that a lot of people with all your reputation would not do. Appreciate so much. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that. I love this world and I love the people of this world. And I wouldn't want to leave this world without saying what's in my heart. And this is what's in my heart right now. So thank you for sharing me with your community. And once again, I want to thank everyone for living the best version of yourself so we can create the best world possible. We're going to love this world into the new world that we all know is possible in our hearts. And we're going to do it together. And that's what makes it exciting.
We will link your tremendous book outside the interviews. Thank you, Greg.
All right. Thank you so much, Maxim. You take good care.
Thank you.
Kennst du schon den Nummer 1 Spiegel-Bestseller Soul Master? Falls nicht, so bekommst du zusätzlich einen Online-Kurs im Wert von über 200 € on top, kostenfrei mit dazu. Einfach hier klicken und entdecken.